Ahead of India's election, polls predicted Narendra Modi could win a coveted supermajority. So imagine the surprise when the battered opposition made a stunning comeback and Modi's powerful Hindu Nationalist Party fell well below the majority mark for the first time in a decade. Those results being reported live on Indian television. Here's Britain's Channel 4 News.
And the highs and lows of this election campaign ended with an outpouring of emotion on live TV. The head of a polling company simply couldn't handle that its forecasting had been so far off the mark.
India, often called the world's biggest democracy, it also has one of the world's biggest media landscapes. Some critics say it is an illusion of choice. Politically, opposition is not on the level playing field, and mainstream media are accused of being mouthpieces for the government. Renowned journalist Ravish Kumar told Al Jazeera that the turning point came when Modi came to power a decade ago.
ऐसा नहीं था कि मीडिया में दुनिया में भारत और दुनिया भर में बुराइयां नहीं थी, कमियां नहीं थी, लेकिन 2014 के बाद मीडिया का जो कैरेक्टर बदला है वो पहले कभी नहीं था। कभी भी एंकर इस तरह से आकर फार्मर्स को खालिस्तानी टेररिस्ट नहीं कहता था, सवाल करने वालों को गैंग नहीं कहता था।
Someone's going to name you as anti-national and I am naming you as anti-national tonight.
Well, India is the lowest it's ever been on the World Press Freedom Index, ranking 161st out of 180 countries. To keep their independence, to keep their integrity, many journalists like Kumar left mainstream media and went online. Here's my colleague Leela Jacinto.
The voters spoke, and two civil society and independent journalists really did their bit. I mean, in India, the mainstream media is mostly owned by big industrialists who are close to Modi, and they kept that line. But, you know, the message came out from independent journalists, YouTube influencers, and in a way, it has shown the strength of Indian democracy despite all the odds, the onslaught that it had.
Leela praising the work of India's independent journalists, so let's meet some. Smita Sharma joins us from New Delhi. Also in the capital is Saurabh Shukla, the co-founder of Red Mic. Hello to you both. Thank you for joining Scoop this Friday. Smita, an election this massive, this long, and not to mention, of course, the deadly heat wave. What was it like for you covering this election?
Bonjour, and thanks for asking me that, because I think that's an experience that will find its way someday when I choose to write a memoir. It was excruciating, to say the least, and I think not just for us. Unfortunately, we saw the heat wave claim lives of at least 50 polling staff, security personnel, because in 2019, by around the third week of May, the election process had wrapped up. But the peak heat wave season, which sets in around the first week or second week of June, this time we saw elections carry on that, because it was a 7-phase long election. And I can just give you one short example. We were shooting in Rai Bareli and Amethi, which is the strongholds of the Congress party, where you've seen, in fact, a massive victory happen and one of the union ministers getting routed out, Smriti Irani, on the seat of Amethi. And we were doing this road show. We literally switched like 3 phones, because every 3-4 minutes, there would be a message splashing across my iPhone or my Android saying the phone is overheated, it's going to conk off, it's going to switch off. We had to go and search for an ice block from somewhere that we kept wrapped in this muslin cloth. And while we would shoot from one phone, the other 2 phones would be kept on it. So it was so hard that if you were to crack an egg on our heads, you wouldn't need a gas connection to turn it into an omelette. But, you know, for those of us doing mobile journalism, these are real physical challenges. But I think it isn't easy at all when you combine it with all kinds of challenges when it comes to resources, when it comes to human mobility, for especially those of us who spent very long terms in mainstream media in India and then have moved on to our independent spaces now, including those who have actually formed their own independent YouTube stations.
Yeah, indeed. Saurabh, that's where you come on. For viewers not familiar with Red Mic, the company says it's a new movement in journalism. What does that mean? And can you give us an example of that in these elections?
And I've just heard Ravish Kumar. We both were working for the same organization 1 year back. And when our ex-organization, NDTV, was taken over by one of the corporate giant of India, Adani, and then Ravish Kumar left, and after a few months, I have also left from that company. Why we have formed the Red Mic? Because we wanted to give an alternative, and we wanted to do it for independent journalists. For an example, when this election, we were covering this election, so we collaborated with several independent journalists because we don't have the kind of resources other corporate media houses have. And this was my first election coverage as an independent journalist. So definitely we had a lot of challenges. That is why Red Mic is a movement to get all ground reporters who are doing journalism independently, so we can bring them together, and the people who like to follow independent journalists, they can come to Red Mic and they can see all these good independent journalists doing journalism together. So definitely these elections were challenge for us. And interestingly, you rightly mentioned while giving the idea about Indian elections. In fact, all the TV channels before the results, they predicted with the help of pollsters that Narendra Modi is coming with full majority, and individually BJP will get more than 300 seats. But in reality, something else happened, and BJP was almost 32 seats less than the majority mark.
Yeah, let me bring in. Sorry, Saurabh. Let me bring in Smita on that point real quickly. Smita, when we look at these surprise results, did independent journalists have a role in how people voted, perhaps reporting on stories that they couldn't normally access on mainstream media?
Absolutely. You know, when the mainstream media is putting out a story there is a whole bunch of political pressure, depending on which side you're aligned with. There is a whole bunch of corporate pressure, because that's how the proprietors and the owners are working today. So whether it's inadvertently or deliberately, but certain kind of numbers are projected out. The mainstream media in India, which is also the media which has been allowed a chance to interview the Prime Minister over the last 10 years, have asked some of the most ridiculous questions, including what is the source of your energy, time and again. And the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy has chosen to not organize and answer free-flowing questions in a single press conference in these past 10 years. I think that speaks volumes. But, you know, you need to realize that even in the online media space today, there are extreme voices to the left and right. I think what Saurabh forgot perhaps to add was that what they're trying to do is also to bring back centrist journalism, where you are talking about issues that matter and not necessarily sensationalizing them without going into the extreme ideological divides, but getting in people to have a dialogue which is healthy for any democracy. So for all the reporters, the ground reporters, you know, Saurabh had hit the ground. I was touring many states during elections. All of us knew and saw that there was no Modi wave on the ground to translate into seats that would transcend, their previous numbers of 303 standalone seats in the 543 seaters of parliament. So those of the reporters with mainstream TV media who were also on the ground, but I think they were living in denial of what was happening as far as the dissonance, the dissatisfaction on the ground was concerned on issues of day-to-day living, livelihood, jobs, unemployment, and they were trying to build a narrative which clearly wasn't there.
Yeah, Saurabh, on that note, we were discussing how hard it is to report on these elections to begin with, but the government also pushing a bill that requires that anyone making political commentary online, like your company, Red Mic, will have to adhere to specific codes prescribed. What does that mean for the future of companies like yours?
That is something which we all are curious to know from the government, because this time the BJP does not have the majority. And in fact, before elections, and when the pollsters predicted that BJP is going to get the majority and they're going to make the government very healthily and they will have the numbers, we were thinking, because they are planning to bring a new broadcast bill. So we were thinking that if the new broadcast bill comes to the power, what it's going to be like. Then we have our stories will be scrutinized by INV ministry, and there are several if and buts. So we were thinking about it, that if new broadcast bill comes to the picture, then how are we going to survive? Because we are on YouTube, we are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and over there, there's a very lot of practical problems which are there. So we were quite curious to know what is going to happen, because this time BJP does not have the numbers, so definitely they have to keep few of their agendas at the backside, because there are few other two allies. Their allies, JDU and TDP. They are more secular, and I think that opposition is also very strong this time, with 235 to 36 seats. So definitely independent journalists will have their voice in the parliament if they try and bring out broadcast bill, the new broadcast bill, where we are going to, we may come in some trouble due to that broadcast bill. That may not happen because opposition is strong, and BJP is forming this new government with the help of few allies, TDP and JDU. So we are also very hopeful that we will have our say as independent journalists.
Yes, Saurabh, I want to thank you, I'd also like to thank you, Smita, both of our guests joining us from New Delhi after this historic elections. Thank you. And that brings us to our quote of the week, and it comes from an editorial by Britain's Guardian newspaper. The piece ends by saying, quote, "With Modi's air of invincibility punctured, politicians, business people, officials, and broadcasters may be somewhat less eager to dance to his tune. All those who have resisted Mr. Modi's encroachment on India's institutions and democratic secular traditions, courageous activists, journalists, lawyers, and the voters themselves should be applauded. They have given democracy a second chance. It must now be seized." That's it for this edition of Scoop. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned to France 24.